Hi, and welcome to ITC504 Human-Computer Interaction. I'm Peter White, and I'll be taking you through this incredibly interesting subject this session. 504 Interface Usability is going to introduce you to the discipline of design of user interfaces. Right, so the sort of topics we'll cover, we'll look at what are the different components of human interaction. We'll look at how do we capture, develop, and understand user requirements. We'll look at things like design research for human computer interaction. We'll look at how do we understand the cognitive framework. How do people think about interacting with an interface? What's the process there? We'll look at principles of design. We'll look at design evaluation, usability testing, and then we'll look at analysis of those results and how we bring that back into the design. So this is kind of a really interesting subject. It's really very much a starting point. Because from here it is a continual on-growth of professional development to keep yourself going. I'm an adjunct lecturer, which means I have a full-time job, so I do this part-time. If you want to contact me, email is always the best bet, pewhite@csu.edu.au. Please put ITC504 in the subject line, because I do teach a number of subjects, and sometimes it's difficult to remember who comes from which. So put the subject name or the subject code in the subject line, and it also prevents my spam filter taking you out. You can also, of course, put questions or comments on the 504 discussion board, because I'll monitor that on a regular basis. Interact is our main site for resources, and in the resources there, the resources you'll find is the topics, which is effectively your study guide, and there's a different topic for each week. You'll find the subject outline, which contains your assignments and schedules and so on. There'll be some readings. There's design team site, because we will work as teams in this subject, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a site for our online meetings. There's a number of articles and videos that will be thrown in through the various topics, and of course the discussion board. So as I said, with the topics, there will be weekly study topics, and so the schedule will lay out what you're doing and so on, and the topics will take you through it all. And these will give you readings, some tutorial work, some videos, some activities, and possibly some additional reading and research requirements that would be helpful. We'll have an online session each Wednesday evening. This will commence at 1900 or 7 p.m. These sessions will always be recorded, and I will upload the MP4 file usually about an hour after the session is finished. It takes about an hour for it to process. That'll be in the resources folder, and you'll be able to download that from there. As I said, we have a number of assessments, some individual, some team. There is no exam in this subject, so all of your work, all of your assessment comes out of assignments. The first one is design concept, and we'll talk about that in a moment. That's an individual one. Then you have a team design one, where you'll come together as a team and look at each of the individual designs you've come up with and decide which is the best and start to work on that. There'll then be a series of a design evaluation where you as an individual in a team will be given another team's final design, and you'll have to do an evaluation on that. That evaluation will go back to the other team so they can make amendments and fix up any problems that you've found with their design. So you need to be looking at that quite effectively and professionally. The fourth assignment then is for the team to produce a working prototype, and that's the assignment. The thing has to work. And then finally, there's an individual reflection. Now, of course, with any of these requests, any extensions for assignments, you must apply for an extension before the due date. So if you're applying on the date or after the date, you've got to get in before him. As I said, we're going to work in teams for a couple of these assignments, and in fact, in industry, most design work is now done in small teams of 2 to 4 people. And so, what we do here is start to do the same thing as happened in industry, and this allows you to share ideas with the other team members, to learn from and with each other, and by working cooperatively, you can all work on one good design and really bring it along fairly quickly. So this always then raises the question of assessment. How are we going to assess the team's work? So we do it in a number of ways. And firstly, we'll look at the quality of the design that the team produces. Then we'll look at the quality of the documentation that backs up that design. And then we'll look at each individual team member's contribution. So we'll look at your contribution to the design, your contribution to the documentation, and your contribution to the team discussions on your individual team forum. So this means you've actually got to get in, you want to pass, you've actually got to get involved with this fairly quickly. And so I would suggest that you start talking to your other team members as soon as you can, so that you can start the process of working your team up so that it will work for you. So let's have a look at the individual assignments. So assignment 1, individual assignment worth 10%. And so what you do is you read the case study. This will outline what's required, and you've got to come up with 2 alternative designs. Okay. The second assignment is the first of the team assignments. And so your team will get together and look at all the designs that have come in for each of the individual members have done, and decide one of those is the most promising design. And so we're going to start developing that. You'll start to develop that into a set of wireframes. And again, there's certain requirements and presentation criteria that you'll need to make sure you read through all that. Assignment 3 is again, an individual assignment. This is where you'll go do this design evaluation, and you'll conduct a usability test of another team's design. And you've got to find not only what are the issues, but also make recommendations on how to fix them. Right? The interesting part then comes in the next assignment. We'll talk about that in a second. Assignment 4 is where your team now produces a working prototype. But what you've got to do is you've got to take all those usability comments that come back from assignment 3, which will be given to you, and you've got to incorporate those into your design and show how they've been incorporated. Right? So that's got to be reflected in the design. We've looked at the usability requirements that have come back, the usability recommendations, and we've incorporated this into the design. And you have to show that, so you show how it all works. The final assignment is, again, an individual one. And this is where you write a paper. And here we ask you to sort of think, okay, I've had a really successful design. And so now you've been asked to write an article for a professional magazine that talks about how did you do it. So you need to discuss how your design met the user requirements and enhanced their experience, the things that influenced your design, why they did, and how. Other interfaces which gave you ideas, and what is the reasoning behind your design, and why do you think that this design is the best solution to this particular problem. So, in other words, this makes you go back over all the work you've done and think about, how did this all work? How did this work? And the idea of this is to try and make you reflect on what you've done and why you've done it, and that can help to make you a much better designer. So that's it. That's the quick outline for the course. It's a really interesting subject, and I hope you enjoy it. If you've got any questions, please email me or throw a question on the 504 discussion board. And we'll see you shortly in the subject. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you.